Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm grateful to learn that people are finally picking up on this whole energy thing. What's going on around them? There's something in the air. A lot of people are just thirsty to learn how their life can be moved forward, how to feel unstuck and all of that. One of those ways is with somebody to holistically coach you along, but also help you in a spiritual awakening. Maybe you've had one. Maybe you're not sure. What does it even mean? She's here to help us all out. Her name is Tracy Makarenko, and she joins us today. Welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Steve?
Very well. I'm intrigued about this spiritual awakening. Before we even get to that, tell me about your credentials, your background. You're a healer, but how do you do that?
I do it in a lot of different ways. When I had my spiritual awakening about 20 plus years ago, I just realized how much I love doing this work and helping people. You know, like when you wake up yourself, you want to run out on the streets and yell and scream and tell everybody how cool this is. So I started off with breath work, and then I added Reiki to my practice when I finally agreed to open a practice. And I'll say agreed to because spirit was guiding me. It wasn't something I really wanted to do, was step into that world fully. But now my practice looks very different. I do hands-on healing. I do that in person and long distance, and that includes cranial sacral therapy, visceral manipulation, brain therapy, the Reiki. I do shamanic healing. I also separately do holistic life coaching. So if you're not into the touchy stuff and you just want to work on your brain part, I'm there for that. Which isn't just the case. It's always a whole full body spiritual awakening. And I do workshops. So I teach Reiki. I'm doing one of those this weekend. I have a monthly new moon women's circle that I offer and other workshops. And you can find all that on my website.
So I want to go back to now the spiritual awakening. Would you say through that you discovered your life's purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let's go. I kind of reverse engineered this. Now I'm going back to the spiritual awakening. What was that like? I've heard from a number of people their description of it. All of them are convinced that's what it was. All have a different story. What's your story? And what did you feel? How long did it last? All of that.
Yeah. So in my family, we've always been a bit intuitive. And a lot of times for most people, that is their awakening. All of a sudden, there's coincidences they can't, put under the carpet anymore. But for me, my spiritual awakening was more coming out of like a mundane life. So, you're just going through your life every day doing the same things. At the time, I had a 2 and a 4-year-old, get them up, get them fed, take care of them for the day, get things ready. If I had time, I got to go out and do my exercises. I used to cycle a lot. And I just thought, oh my God, there's got to be more to life than this. Like, I just can't keep doing this day in, day out. And I think when you start asking those deeper questions, why am I here? What's my purpose? It starts showing up in your life. And so you might pick up a book and read something and go, oh, geez, what's that all about? And it kind of, that awakening, it intrigues you, you're enlightened. Or you talk to somebody, or, there's a lot of different ways that this kind of occurs. For me, I guess the big part of my awakening was I was just in a really not a great state. We'd done a lot of moving from Canada to the United States to Brazil, and then we came back to Canada, all within about a 9-year period. And I just kind of had a little bit of a breakdown. I was finally in a safe location where I didn't have to try and figure things out anymore. I was back in my hometown. I had friends and family supporting me. And I just kind of like fell apart for a little bit. And I had to figure out how to get out of that hole. And I was introduced to breath work, and I thought, oh, sure, let's go see what breathing's all about, kind of half laughing about this thing. And I walked out of that 2-day weekend workshop like floating, and my mind was just like
Hmm.
so happy. And I just couldn't believe how breath opened up pieces inside of me that were like so tight. It just kind of shattered a little bit. So, yeah, it was
Wow.
just miraculous. Yeah.
Just from a breath work seminar, that was, were you already feeling like you're on the path to something? And then that was the kind of blew it all up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you pick up that book, Wayne Dyer had a lot of great books back in the early 2000s. I was kind of getting into reading that. I started my meditation practice just
Hmm.
because my brain felt like it needed a little bit of silence, and I heard this was a good thing. Started yoga. So there was a lot of things that was taking me from like I wrote a book. It's called Moving from the Outside In, and it is just about that. It was, moving from all that stuff that keeps us busy during the day and moving inside to that quieter place where you get to sit with yourself and realize, well, that's not who I am. I'm doing that because this is the way I need to behave here or here or here.
From that moment where you were walking on air, walking out of the breath work lesson. By the way, side note here, that kind of happened for me too.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. I'd love
Yeah,
to hear.
real briefly. Um, I had always been I've always helped others market metaphysical stuff. And I kind of knew what these things were. Well, what's a chakra, what's Reiki, all of that. This is going back like a decade and a half at least. I mean, I've worked with people who are very intuitive, and that's their career, and they're very visible from 25 years ago. But it was only until I really needed it, a little over 3 years ago, where now I paid attention to it. And instead of skipping the stone on top of the water, I jumped into the water. And it was just about 2 years ago. A friend invited me to a cacao ceremony, and
Mm,
that uses uh, pure chocolate from the tropical rainforest, Costa Rica, highest amount of magnesium of anything on the planet. And they hit a sound bowl to kick the thing off. I've never been in the presence of one. It was like, it was just one note. I'm like, oh, that's what that's about. And then we did a breath exercise, 15 people. It was about 15 minutes. I don't know what went on. And of course, the chocolate has euphoric properties, but I don't think it had anything to do with the chocolate. The breath work. And they told us, think about something you want to improve. All 15 people, and myself included, were all crying at the end of it. It was unbelievable.
yeah.
And that's where I realized the power of the breath work, what this can do. So I get what you're saying, that the whole spiritual awakening. And I was wondering what you're going to say, whether it was going to be uh, a night shift, a complete, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? Because I've heard that from people where some have told me that a spiritual awakening for them lasted a year, wasn't pleasant, wasn't pleasant. But it was fantastic when it all kind of transitioned out. Did you ever hear stories like that as well?
Oh, that's I think everyone's story typically if they're doing it right. Like I mean, this is work. Awakening is not easy. So I mean, the weekend workshop I was on, the theme was forgiveness. So you
Ah,
can imagine what that was like, a whole weekend of having to forgive not only people but yourself. Like I was on the floor on a ball crying. Absolutely, it's hard work. And I would say like 10 solid years of hard work I've gone through just healing different parts of me. And I mean, the show definitely not long enough to go through all of that. But um, there are easier ways to get into this. I mean, some people have to have that near-death experience, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I need to wake up and change my life. I can't keep
Hmm.
going this way. Like, I don't suggest you do it that way. It's not the best way to do it. I've had I've had clients who've had, I used to do a Ask the Expert thing in the newspaper, and they'd have my ad on their fridge for, 3 years, and then they'd be in like the second or third car accident or something else happened to them, and they're like, okay, I need to finally call you and come see you. I've been putting this off too long. So, no, I'd rather people come see me when they
Hmm.
feel that initial urge so they don't have to go through something more difficult.
Sure. And when you work with somebody, and that's why I wanted to start with the different modalities. You've got a lot of stuff in the tool chest to pull down to help somebody, depending on what their challenges are, what their goals are. How do you determine though? How do you pick what's going to work best, or is that kind of an intuition kind of thing?
Oh, it's absolutely at this point in my life, it's just intuitive for sure. I know sometimes what's going to happen beforehand. Other times I don't have a clue. Usually it happens as soon as I tap into their energy. I'll have a better sense. But I always start with breath. Like breath for everybody is different. And just get people breathing because, you recognize a little bit more of your body when you start breathing. You notice that your shoulders are up here, or,
Hmm.
you're twisting, or just
Sure.
breathing into your body brings that body awareness. And I think a spiritual awakening has a lot to do with body awareness, just knowing that you own one and that it's there. Then I usually tap into the nervous system because everybody's nervous systems, especially when you come in and see somebody for the first time, you don't know what's going to happen. Everyone always asks, what's going to happen? I'm like, well, I guess we'll find out. Kind of calm their nervous system down. And then it's really great if they fall asleep at that point, um, because then you know that they kind of trust you, or that the universe is kind of getting them out of the way so that we can do some deeper work. But they don't always fall asleep.
Oh, I've been there. I've done it. I've had Reiki and have fallen asleep, and I went with somebody else, and they're like, "You fell asleep." I'm like, "I did," and like, "Yeah," and you were snoring. I'm like, "Oh, great." I don't snore. Nobody's ever said I snore. I was snoring during Reiki, but it was a good thing, like you said, because now you're so relaxed, and we can do a lot of these things virtually. Why the heck can't it be done while you're sleeping?
Yeah. And when you fall asleep, it's like the ego is kind of not playing games, the body's just kind of there. Um, but the part that I really love about this work, and it's just kind of, it's not a small part, it's a big part, but it's not very visible, is we have our physical body, but we have this energetic body, and it's not the chakras that, run down the front and the back of our body. It's not the meridians that people use for acupuncture, or acupressure. Um, it's literally the energy that shows up when we're born, probably before we're born, but it's what gives us life, this energy, this prana. And a lot of times when we do repetitive stuff, so I've worked with swimmers when they're diving all the time, I'll work on them and their legs are perfectly together all the time. So energetically, they're here. So when they walk, they stumble a bit because their energetic legs are here, but their physical legs are trying to move. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody's in an accident or anything really, you can dislodge a limb from where your limb is. And so you might end up getting cold hands and feet. Typically, they're the first ones because the circulation, it's harder for it to get down to our hands and feet. But people have the same problems with any part of their body. Concussions, the brain parts are all like dislodged from where the actual physical brain is. So for me, putting those pieces back together, and then it's almost like a softening of butter when they just like go together and then there's a click. And then the person, whoever the person is, whether they're in person or farther away or they're in a workshop and it's all happening on different levels, there's a little bit of an awakening going, oh my God, how did that happen?
I totally know what you're saying. And I believed in some of my really good friends are psychics. So I would watch. I'm where I'm going with this is the spiritual part. I never had an answer for how they do what they do, but I know it's legit. And I'm skeptical. I always try to punch a hole in it. And when I can't, it's legit. And my mom passed 4 years ago, and I ask for signs and I get them. And they're very specific. It's not like a butterfly went by. No, it's very specific. I could go on for hours, like
No,
all the
I'd like
stuff
to
that
hear
she sent.
what does she do?
Last thing she did was I was just saying, Mom, just tell me everything's all right. Got some stuff going on. Show me a sign. Last thing she did happened right here, actually. I order a new internet package. And I said, listen, can you do anything on the price? And they said, yeah, we can take you down $100 and give you 100 meg of speed more. I'm like, fantastic. They show up, drop off the modem, they leave. So I got to hook it up to everything, flip it over, and there's an automatically generated password. It's on a sticker. They put it on the bottom. The password is 4 digits dash Rose dash 2 digits. Rose is my mom.
Wow.
And I'll keep this very short, but it freaks me out. So I start looking at the digits and I'm trying to play, and I have it on the wall right here. I try to play with them. I'm like, what's going on? They always come out to 7 and 11. 7 and 11. I add them up, I move them around. What is that about? Got nothing. Mention it to my daughter who's 15. I'm like, what is this? And I think she's into it if she's got something. She goes, you ever think about your dad? I'm like, no, didn't think of that. My dad passed when I was 21. So I don't remember a lot of the stuff. So I looked into it. He died on 7/11. He was born on 3/4 at the mob. And I talked to another psychic and they said, yeah, you know what? Your parents got divorced when you were young. It means that mom and dad are together and they're watching it. Freaky thing 12 days ago. So put this aside. Yeah, month went by. New Year's Eve, reach into a drawer. I'm like, yeah, I'm dressed up. Let me, I'm going to wear a nice watch. Oh, that's my father's watch. Never wore the thing. Never wore it. Put it on. Why not? I look at it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Hey, it's still running. Ah, interesting. It was 7/11 when I put it on
Oh
PM,
my
New
God.
Year's Eve. But wait,
Oh, there's more.
the watch said 7/11. It wasn't running. I looked at it at 7:30. It still said 7/11. I don't know what the references are, but that keeps coming up for me. Eventually, yes, I played the numbers in the lottery multiple times, haven't won yet, but um, to me, that says that spirit is always around us. And that kind of refocused my thinking to what you said. And I believe I'm getting this from you, that we are spiritual beings in just a human vessel. This is a container.
Yeah.
The spirit is there and it lives on whether you're here or not. It's always around you. And that's, from psychics, from, my mom's messages and all of that. That was my validation. Yeah. Okay. Now I got it. It's not the other way around. It's not, humans who have spirituality, it's the other way. Is that in line with what you think?
Yeah, and I mean, people say it all the time. We're a spiritual being having a human experience, right?
Right.
Human
Right.
experience is the physical body. Um, but the more we keep our physical and energetic bodies in alignment, you know, you typically can't really do it on your own. It's not terribly easy to keep those in alignment on your own. And we do things to try and do that. You know, we go to the chiropractor to try and make that feel right, but it's the energetic physical body that's disconnected, not the bones necessarily in the spine. So, yeah, where was I going with
Well,
this?
even to your point, we'll go to a traditional doctor or chiropractor or whatever, but many of us don't realize there's more going on energetically that's causing us to have to go to medical doctors and all of that. But we don't know. We don't pick up on that, most of us.
Well, I mean, I still see my medical doctor, don't get me wrong. I think
Oh,
there's
sure.
about that, but I'm finding they have less and less answers for me. As I move up the spiritual ladder and my awakening goes on, like last year, my life was mundane. Was I still awake? Absolutely. But it was mundane at my spiritual level. So, I mean, things like that also happen. You still want more. You're asking that question again. Okay, is there more for me? And then, all of a sudden you're doing a podcast show and you're like, ooh, yay, this is exciting. Like whatever it is. For me, that's the
Sure.
exciting part right now. But uh, I feel that the spirit part keeps taking you somewhere else. It's not the physical part, it's the spiritual part.
Yep. Yep. And it's so wild when you tap into it and you realize it that there's something more. There's something more for me. When you work with people, Tracy, how does it work? Starts with a conversation, they tell you their story because everybody's got a story, and then you kind of decide if it's a right fit and what might work.
No, if people find me, I figure it's a right fit. I've been doing this long enough that years ago I decided that I wasn't attracting people that didn't need my help. Or people that would come in and question it. It's like, you know what, you can go question someone else. I want people who are, and I'm not saying question it to a point of have questions and want answers, but people are like, do you really think you can do anything? What are your credentials? I'm like, oh, like I want people who want to come work with me. So
Sure.
when people find me, no matter what, I work with them because I just feel that's what I've attracted. And this whole thing about spirituality, we get into that whole manifesting or creative abundance and deciding what you want, how you're going to move forward with some of that. But no, they
Mm,
come in and sometimes we have a conversation and sometimes we get just like right into it. I don't very often do like, those 15 minutes, let's get together and see how we fit. I usually just like jumping in.
mm,
Just want to jump in. I just want to help you. I just want to see what's going on. Whether it's a physical problem, which is what people typically come in for. They have a concussion or a whiplash, or they're having problems with their organs, digestion or whatever it is. Sometimes it's just like anxiety or depression, but that's not the baseline of what's going on with people. They're not paying attention to their emotions. So, I help
mm,
them with that part, the physical part they feel is ailing them, but it's almost always connected back to an emotional part. Sometimes they're not ready to feel that, and that's fine. We'll have a few sessions, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, where did all that anger come from? And you're just like, well, it's been sitting there for a long time. Let's get it out. Let's connect in with it and let's like breathe through it and let's just get this anger out or whatever the emotion is. There's a
mm.
lot of different emotions that we keep trapped in our body for different reasons.
And that's why many of us are dealing with some physical stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're just about out of time, but I love what you said that people show up that need you. It just happens that way. And I agree. I've experienced it. What do they say when the student is ready, the teacher shows up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of a beautiful thing when you have that alignment and you finally realize the spiritual thing going on there. Tracy, how do we find you?
Oh, so physically, I'm in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada. But online, you can find me at tracymakarenko.com. So TracyMakarenko.com. And then Tracy Makarenko for everything, Facebook, Instagram, email address, tracy@tracymakarenko.com. Just kept it simple.
Love it. I'm looking in the background and it looks like you have some kind of drum.
Oh yeah, I have a couple drums. Yeah, I actually don't play the big one very much. I'm a shamanic healer, so drumming is kind of an important part. But I do like the littler drum down there. And then my daughter was in Bahamas and brought me a rain stick, which I've been wanting forever and ever.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah. I
that's
was in
always
the
fun.
love the Bahamas, love all the culture, because this kind of stuff, this music, now I get why they're all happy. Because it heals. Yeah.
It does, for sure.
Tracy, wonderful having you on. Love talking with you. So much more to talk about. Even, you
Oh.
talk about shamanic healing. There's another podcast at minimum. But I thank you for today and look forward next time we talk.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.